to Westminster now, as Prime Minister Rishi Sunak will face questions from MPs later today ahead of Parliament's Easter recess.
Now, hopefully, fingers crossed, technology in a long while, joining us to share some of Labour's most pressing questions, good friend of the show, Shadow Paymaster General Jonathan Ashworth. Go. Is he there?
Yes.
Ah, there he is.
Never lets us down. Good morning.
I am here.
Good morning, Jonathan.
In your Mac again. In your Mac again.
Jeremy, I most certainly am a good friend of the show. Delighted to be here this morning.
Right, Ashworth, me old lad, there are 15 questions that you're setting to Sunak. We picked a couple we want to ask you about. Presumably, the first question should be, come on, Rishi, when's the election, right?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I thought we would have a general election in May. I always thought we'd have a general election in May because seemed to me it was either a general election or a Tory leadership election. And that sounds like a Tory leadership election could be on the way. The Tory MPs fear that Rishi Sunak is too weak to lead them into a general election. They're worried for their seats. And, of course, he chickened out of that May election. He's running scared. Look, the country, after 14 years of Conservative failure, I think there is a yearning for change. And I think people want a general election because they're fed up of waiting longer on an NHS waiting list, struggling to see a GP in the morning. They're fed up of the squeeze in the living standards, the prices of everything going up in the shops all the time. So I do think it's time for change and we need that general election.
I'm going to move to question 11 now. Does the Prime Minister believe that someone who's made racist comments and talked openly about wanting to shoot an MP should continue to donate to him or receive contracts from the public purse? That's a question that I certainly would like to have answered.
Frank Hester, wasn't it?
But also, what's the Labour Party's policy in terms of receiving donations from people who've made racist comments? And indeed, will the Labour Party commit to actually reporting on the findings of the investigation into Diane Abbott, the MP at the centre of these horrendous comments, the victim of these comments? Will she be allowed back in the Labour Party in time for the general election?
Well, two parts of the question. On the first part, of course, Rishi Sunak should give that money back. The fact that he still refuses to do that, I think, again, reveals how weak he is. And I think it's absolutely shameful that his Tory party leaflets that be being put through people's letter boxes now are paid for by that money. On the issue of Diane Abbott, there is an independent inquiry which looks into all of these matters. I can't really comment on it because it is independent and they don't give me an update on all the ins and outs of it, but I hope that inquiry proceeds and that it reports and an outcome.
You don't need to know the ins and outs of it. You need to know that it's taken 11 months to come to a conclusion about a very, very short letter. Is it simply the case that the Labour Party are dilly-dallying until the general election is called by Rishi Sunak so they don't have to deal with that so-called issue?
No, I don't think it's that, but it's independent, so it's a bit difficult to judge why it's taking so long, because we don't, as I say, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I would hope that they would get on with it, because, understandably, people are asking questions about it. Nothing wrong with asking questions about it. That's entirely reasonable, but it is an independent inquiry, and I hope it can be resolved.
Jonathan, one of the big things that people will say, and we've talked honestly and candidly, you and I, on this show over the years, about how the Labour Party has changed systematically from top to bottom from 4 years ago. However, you will acknowledge, whether it's in Redwall or across other parts of the country, there is and will be concerns. You've addressed a lot of them. One of the things that people keep saying to me, and I want to bring you to question A. A US general recently said that the UK is barely a Tier 2 military power. And the dire situation has led to his cabinet colleagues breaking rank by calling for 3% of defence spending. Now, we'll talk about the cyber attacks in a minute. We can talk about Ukraine and the Middle East. What a lot of people who will vote in the next election, despite a cost of living crisis, want to know is, would a Labour Party guarantee 3% of GDR? Is protecting the United Kingdom and having a strong military what we can expect if you win the general election at some point this year or not? Because the past, for you as a party, is apparently very different to right now. So what would you and how would you answer that?
Well, protecting the national security of the United Kingdom and the people who live here has to be your number one priority for anyone seeking elected office. It is the foundation of everything you stand for. And it is incredibly serious at this time when we know there are so many threats in the world, whether that is from Russia or what we're seeing on the cybersecurity front in the news in the last 24 hours. In terms of the actual figures, we've got to make tough decisions on the public finances, but all of our position will be outlined in our manifesto on future expenditure. I mean, we've got to be honest that if the Labour Party forms a government, we are inheriting an almighty economic mess from the Conservatives after 14 years. But I can assure you that national security and defence will always be a foundation of everything we do and will be an absolute priority.
Jonathan, from national defence to another national issue that gets certainly a lot of our viewers and listeners riled up. Potholes.
Yeah.
Question 14. The Rishi Sunak in 2021, he was then the Chancellor, said, enjoy National Pothole Day before they're all gone. He promised he would get rid of potholes. Does the Prime Minister accept that his pothole plan has not worked? Jonathan, what's Labour's pothole plan?
Lots of cement.
No, I mean, it's just astonishing, isn't it, that Rishi Sunak was saying enjoy National Pothole Day before they're all gone. I mean, what a sort of gauche thing for him to say when we know that there are potholes everywhere in all the roads. Look, this is partly about investment in local government and our councils. And if you grow your economy, you can put the investment that you need into public services. But I think this is one of the things that is driving people berserk. That Rishi Sunak made a big promise on potholes, and he's completely failed to deliver on any of his promises on that front.
Jonathan, thank you so much indeed. I'm going to be told off very quickly, 10 seconds. The Chinese cybersecurity threat, Dowden yesterday, 3 years, 2 companies and an individual. It was slightly flimsy. Don't we need to be more vigilant, stronger in our response, Labour's response to that?
Well, we've got to always keep all these things under serious review. We can never undermine national security nor democratic integrity. I think we need a full audit now of all of our relations with China to really understand what's going on. But I think this is something we're going to be returning to quite a lot because of the level of seriousness now and the gravity attached to this is rising. And I think we're going to be talking about this a lot more on your show in the weeks to come.
Jonathan, thank you. Shadow Paymaster General Jonathan Ashworth. Anna